I was standing at my kitchen counter staring at a line of code that refused to work. I had been staring at it long enough to start taking it personally. I was 28, living alone in a rented house outside Richmond, and spending most of my days repairing websites built by people who had already stopped answering their clients. That day, I had spoken to no one. I wore an old gray t-shirt, jeans, and socks. My laptop was open beside a glass of warm iced tea I had forgotten to finish. The house was clean, the yard was trimmed, my bills were paid, and somehow none of that made the place feel less empty. Then someone knocked. Claire stood on the porch with a covered casserole dish in both hands. A dish towel was wrapped around the handles. She wore clean work jeans, a fitted green shirt, and sturdy garden shoes. Her auburn brown hair was pulled back loosely, with a few strands hanging near her face. "I made too much chicken and rice," she said. I looked at the size of the dish. Too much for one person, or enough to give you a safe reason to knock on the younger neighbor's door? Her eyebrows lifted. For half a second, I thought I had ruined the first interesting thing to happen all week. Then she smiled. "Those can both be true." I stepped aside. "Come in." Claire had lived next door since before I moved in 4 months earlier. Until then, our relationship had consisted of driveway waves, a conversation about trash pickup, and one package that had been delivered to her house by mistake. I had noticed her right away. It was hard not to. She was clearly older than me, but she never carried herself like someone hoping people would overlook it. She moved with confidence, spoke directly, and always looked like she had somewhere useful to be. I assumed she saw me as the quiet younger man next door who spent too much time inside. Apparently, she had also noticed me. The afternoon was pleasant, so we took the food onto my front porch. Claire sat in the chair near the window while I took the upper step. I brought 2 plates, forks, and fresh glasses of iced tea. The chicken and rice was good. Not polite good. Actually good. "You really made too much?" I asked. Claire took a drink. "You're still investigating?" "I fix websites for a living. Suspicion is part of the job." "What kind of websites?" "Mostly small businesses. Online stores that stop accepting payments. Contact forms that send messages nowhere. Databases nobody updated for 3 years. So problems left by people who already got paid." "Exactly." She nodded. "My clients do something similar. They ask for a natural garden, then show me a picture that needs daily care and 3 employees." Claire explained that she maintained yards, refreshed flower beds, repaired garden borders, and prepared outdoor spaces for people selling their homes. She spoke easily when the subject was work. Her hands moved when she described plants, soil, and clients who wanted low maintenance without accepting what low maintenance looked like. "So we both spend our days cleaning up other people's messes," she said. I lifted my glass. "To mess management." She laughed, and I liked the sound of it more than I expected. Whenever the conversation moved toward her personal life, though, she redirected it with a question or a joke. I recognized the method because I used it too. At one point, she looked through the front window. "Are those notebooks yours?" Several old notebooks were stacked on a shelf beside the living room wall. Technically, that sounds like an answer designed to end the conversation. It usually works. "Do you write?" My first instinct was to say no. "I used to." "What happened?" I looked down at my plate. "Nothing dramatic. I just started reading everything I wrote and hearing how forced it sounded. Eventually, not finishing anything felt safer than finishing something bad." Claire watched me without giving me the kind of automatic encouragement people offer when they have not read a single word. Then she said, "Maybe you didn't stop being a writer. Maybe you just stopped letting yourself finish anything." I glanced at her. That sounded prepared. It wasn't. That's worse. "Why?" "Because now I have to think about it." Near sunset, Claire shifted in the chair and winced, bringing one hand toward her upper shoulder. "You okay?" "Just stiff. A supplier sent several planters to the wrong property this morning. I moved them before anyone arrived to help." "You should put something cold on it." "I should do many sensible things. And you'll do none of them?" "That is the current plan." I hesitated. Offering felt risky, but pretending not to notice felt worse. "I can try to loosen the muscle," I said. "Only if you want. I'm not pretending I know more than I do." Claire studied me carefully. She knew I found her attractive. I was fairly sure she did, anyway. We also barely knew each other, and letting me help could change the tone of the afternoon. "Okay," she said. "But be careful." We moved into the kitchen. She remained fully dressed and sat sideways in a chair. I stood behind her. Before placing my hands near her upper shoulder, I said, "Tell me if you want me to stop." "I will." She stayed tense at first. I used less pressure and asked if that was better. "Yes," she said quietly. I kept my hands limited to the stiff area near her shoulder and upper back. I did not joke. I did not move closer than necessary. When she adjusted, I stopped and waited until she said it was fine to continue. After a minute, some of the tension left her posture. Then she said, almost under her breath, "You make me feel more beautiful than Marcus ever did." My hand stopped immediately. I stepped back. Claire looked down at the table. "I shouldn't have said that." "Maybe not," I said. "But you said it, and I'm not going to make you pay for it." She turned toward me slowly. For the first time that afternoon, she looked uncertain. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. "Marcus was my husband," she said. "Former husband." I waited. She did not explain more, and I did not ask her to. After a few quiet seconds, she touched the edge of the empty casserole dish. "I didn't make too much food. I suspected that when you arrived with enough dinner for a community meeting." I almost turned around. "What stopped you?" Claire looked toward the front door. I was already on the porch. That answer stayed with me. She left a few minutes later and told me I could return the clean dish whenever I wanted. There was no kiss and no dramatic promise. I only watched her cross the narrow space between our houses and unlock her own front door. When I returned to the kitchen, the broken code was still waiting on my laptop. I could not focus on it. The house was quiet again, but it no longer felt like the same kind of quiet. Claire had not simply brought me dinner. She had walked to my door knowing I might misunderstand, laugh, or politely send her home. The casserole had been an excuse. The knock had been the real thing. The next morning, Claire came back carrying 2 coffees. This time, there was no large dish and no story about making too much of anything. She stood on my porch in jeans, a light jacket, and the same direct expression she used when discussing work. "I bought this one for you on purpose," she said, holding out the cup. "That feels dangerously honest. I'm trying something new." I let her in. The clean casserole dish was still drying beside the sink. Claire noticed it, then sat at the kitchen table while I moved my laptop and a pile of unpaid invoices to the counter. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The night before had changed something, but neither of us seemed sure what name to give it. Claire wrapped both hands around her coffee. "I thought about avoiding you. That would have been easy. We have separate houses." "I know." She looked at me. "That's why I didn't do it." I sat across from her. She said pretending the previous evening meant nothing would be familiar. For years, whenever something made her uncomfortable, she had learned to smooth it over before anyone else noticed. Then she told me about Marcus. They had been married for almost 7 years. Their divorce became final the year before. She said he had never been the kind of husband people warned her about. He remembered appointments. He bought thoughtful gifts. He fixed things around the house. He was polite to neighbors and calm around family. "That sounds like the part where I'm supposed to ask what went wrong," I said. Claire gave a tired smile. "Everything had a price." She explained that if Marcus did something kind, he stored it. Maybe not for that day, but for later. During an argument, he would remind her what he had bought, what he had repaired, or what he believed he had given up for her. If he was kind, she said, there was always a bill later. "That isn't kindness," I said. "That's credit." Claire became very still. I thought I had said too much, but then she looked down at her coffee and nodded. "Yes," she said. "That's exactly what it was." She told me the reason the night before had affected her was not the shoulder itself. It was the fact that I had asked before helping, checked whether she was comfortable, and stepped away the second her words changed the situation. "You didn't act like I owed you a better ending to the evening," she said. "Help should be free." The sentence came out simply, but Claire looked at me as if it carried more weight than I intended. After a few seconds, I asked what else Marcus had made her give up. She hesitated. "I used to paint." That surprised me, though I was not sure why. Maybe because I had only seen her with garden tools and work gloves, always moving between jobs. "What did you paint?" "Houses, porches, gardens, people alone in coffee shops. Nothing important." "You sold any?" "A few." She told me about the first one. It showed a yellow house with an overgrown garden and evening light across the porch. The real property was plain, but she painted the version she wished had been there. At first, Marcus liked her work. He praised it when they were dating. Later, the questions started. How much had the paint cost? How long had the piece taken? Would it sell? Was the spare room really the best place for supplies? Couldn't she use that time for something more practical? He never told me to stop, Claire said. He just made continuing feel selfish. I felt anger rise before I could hide it. He had no right to. Daniel. I stopped. She leaned back in the chair. Don't turn this into something you have to repair. I wasn't. You were beginning to. She was right. Fixing broken systems was how I made money. It was also what I did when another person's feelings made me uncertain. Find the error. Remove it. Replace the damaged part. I don't know what else to do sometimes, I admitted. You can listen. I nodded. Claire said she did not need someone to rebuild her. She needed enough room to make choices without another person explaining why his answer was better. I can do that, I said. You can try. The correction was fair. Then she admitted she had recently started painting again. Only small pieces. Most were unfinished, and she had shown no one. Unfinished work still counts as work, I said. You're talking about yourself too. I was hoping you wouldn't notice. I noticed neglected things. Occupational habit. That made me laugh, and some of the pressure left the room. Then Claire's expression changed. You're 28, she said. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't matter. I had expected the subject eventually. I had not expected it over morning coffee with the casserole dish still beside the sink. It matters, I said. She studied my face, probably expecting me to dismiss it. I told her we had lived different amounts of life. She had a marriage behind her, an established business, and a house she owned. I rented mine, worked contract to contract, and had never stayed in a relationship long enough to learn what long-term partnership really required. Claire asked whether I liked her because she was older. No. Because it feels unusual? No. Because you think I need saving? I know better than to say yes after the last 5 minutes. She almost smiled, but she kept looking at me. Then why? I took a breath. I noticed your age. I didn't fall for a number. I told her I liked the way she spoke about her work, the way she noticed small things other people ignored, and the fact that she had knocked on my door even though doing it made her nervous. I liked her humor, her confidence, the person she was trying to become again. Fascination can fade, she said. Then I'll have to show you more than fascination. Claire looked toward the window. When she spoke again, her voice was firmer. No hidden meetings. No acting embarrassed in public. No jokes about me being older. I'm not interested in being an experiment, and I'm not interested in some unclear arrangement where nobody says what they want. I understand. And don't promise things you can't support with action. I won't. She held my gaze for several seconds, then placed one hand on the table between us. I put mine over it. We did not kiss. We only sat there holding hands, both aware that moving slowly did not make the moment smaller. Then a truck pulled into Claire's driveway. She looked through the window and exhaled. My brother. A tall man stepped out, glanced toward her empty porch, and then looked directly at my house. Claire slowly removed her hand from mine. That, she said, is going to become a conversation. The next morning, Luke knocked on my door before 9. Claire had already left for an early job, which told me he had chosen the timing carefully. When I opened the door, he introduced himself even though I knew exactly who he was. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, and dressed like a man who had planned to drive home, but decided one more conversation was necessary. What exactly do you want from my sister? He asked. No greeting. No coffee. Straight to the difficult part. I'm still figuring that out. His expression tightened. That isn't very reassuring. It's honest. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. The older woman across the road was watering the same small section of flowers she had been watering for several minutes. Our neighborhood had excellent unofficial security. I told Luke something had started between Claire and me. I did not know where it would lead, but I intended to be clear with her and not pressure her into anything. She has lived more life than you have, he said. Don't confuse being impressed by her with being ready for her. I'm not asking her to become younger for me. I'm also not pretending I know everything she knows. Luke looked toward Claire's house. Then he told me what Marcus had done over the years. Not in one dramatic event. In small corrections. Claire stopped wearing certain clothes because Marcus said they drew the wrong kind of attention. She stopped seeing friends he considered careless. She stopped arguing because every disagreement lasted until she apologized. Eventually, she became good at saying she was fine before anyone asked. She stopped painting, Luke said. That should have told me everything. She started again. He looked at me quickly. She told you. Yes. Luke was quiet for a moment. She's only beginning to feel like herself again. I don't want her to feel smaller around me. What happens when she gets scared and pulls away? I give her room. And if she changes her mind? That's her choice. And if her choice doesn't include you? The answer caught in my chest, but I gave it anyway. I won't punish her for deciding. Luke nodded once, though not with approval. That's easy to say on a porch. I know. He studied me as if waiting for a speech that would prove I was either impressive or completely foolish. I gave him neither. When he left, he did not shake my hand. That afternoon, Claire came over and found me working at the kitchen counter. What did he say? Your brother has a warm conversational style. Daniel. I closed the laptop. I told her Luke had asked about my intentions, warned me not to mistake interest for readiness, and explained that he had watched her become quieter during the marriage. I did not repeat every detail. Some of it had been said by a brother who was scared for his sister, and I did not think Claire needed to hear herself described like a case file. Did he scare you away? She asked. No. She leaned against the counter. Good things make me nervous now. When I feel happy, I start looking for the hidden cost. You don't owe me anything for feeling good here. That's what scares me. Before I could answer, she took out her phone. Marcus called 3 days ago. I stayed still. I didn't answer. He left a message. She had listened to it several times. His words were ordinary. He hoped she was well. He missed talking. He had been thinking about things. He wanted to meet. Claire said it was the kind of message that would sound harmless to anyone else. But I hear instructions inside it, she said. I hear him waiting for me to respond correctly. My first thought was that she should erase it and block his number. The words almost came out. Instead, I asked, what do you want to do? I don't know. Then you don't have to decide while sitting beside me. She looked at me for a long moment, then moved closer and rested her head against my shoulder. We stayed that way without solving anything. The following morning, she returned with a paper bag of pastries. She wore jeans, a soft sweater, and casual shoes. There was a streak of blue near her wrist. You painted. Claire glanced at it. I thought I washed all of that off. That would have ruined the evidence. She admitted she had stayed up working on a small version of the yellow house she once sold. This one had a wider porch and a garden that looked less controlled. I told her about the stories in my notebooks. Most were unfinished because I always reached a point where continuing meant accepting that the result might not match the version in my head. So Marcus convinced me not to paint, she said. And you convinced yourself not to write. That feels unfairly accurate. She asked to read one of my old stories. No. All right. Her quick acceptance made me feel worse than pressure would have. Then she asked, would you write one new page? I looked toward the notebooks. 1 page. 1 page. Will you show me one unfinished painting? Claire narrowed her eyes. Only if you don't tell me it's wonderful before you actually look at it. Same rule for the page. We agreed on 1 piece each, honest feedback, and no automatic praise. Before she left, Claire said Marcus used to tell her she made everything too emotional. You weren't too much, I said. You just stopped making yourself small enough for him. Her expression changed. She reached for my hand without hesitation. I want to try this seriously, she said. And I don't want to hide it. That evening, she invited Luke and me to dinner. Before I went over, Claire called Marcus alone. She did not ask me to sit nearby or tell her what to say. Later, she told me she had said she did not want to meet, did not want further contact, and expected him to respect that. Marcus asked whether someone else was influencing her. Claire answered, this is my decision. That is the part you never learn to accept. Then she ended the call and erased the message. I didn't do it for you, she told me. I know. She looked relieved that I understood. At dinner, Claire waited until Luke had taken his second bite before speaking. Daniel and I are seeing where this goes. I'm telling you because I love you. I'm not asking permission. Luke put down his fork. For a second, I thought dinner might end very early. Then he nodded. That's fair. It did not stop his questions. He asked what would happen if I later wanted a different kind of future. Whether I understood that Claire and I were at different stages. Whether I was ready for comments from other people. Whether I would resent the fact that she owned her house and had a steadier business than mine. I answered the only way I could. Those are conversations Claire and I have to have. I won't answer them for her, and I won't pretend they don't matter. Luke watched me. I'm not here to fix her, save her, or borrow a life she already built. I added. I want to build my own life and see whether ours fit beside each other. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Claire picked up her fork. Luke did the same. He did not approve of me. Not yet. But he stayed at the table, and for the first time, he stopped looking at me like I was a temporary problem Claire had failed to notice. After dinner, Claire and I stood at the sink washing dishes while Luke sat in the living room pretending not to listen. Claire washed. I dried. I was shaking after I ended the call, she said. What part felt worst? She glanced at me. You're not going to ask what he said? You already told me the important part. Claire rinsed a plate slowly. I felt relieved, then sad, then angry that I felt sad. That sounds exhausting. It was. She handed me the plate. But I was proud too. You should be. She looked at me carefully, checking whether I was about to make her choice about us. I added, because you decided what you wanted and said it. Her shoulders relaxed. Later, I walked her onto the front porch. The air had turned cooler, and the street was quiet except for a television playing inside the house across the road. Claire stood near the porch steps with her hands in the pockets of her jacket. So we're really doing this? She asked. Do you want to? Yes. She stepped closer and kissed me. It was soft and unhurried. No dramatic music. No sudden answer to every question we had raised over the previous days. Just Claire choosing to move closer and me meeting her there. When she pulled back, she smiled. You look surprised. I'm trying not to act impressed by the older woman. Her eyes narrowed. That was a terrible joke, I said immediately. Very. Then she laughed, and I did too. We did not become a perfect couple after that. For the first few weeks, we were both waiting for something to go wrong. Claire sometimes studied me when a younger woman spoke to me at the coffee shop. She never accused me of anything, but I could see the question. One evening, she finally said it. What happens when you realize you could be with someone closer to your age? I did not tell her she looked younger than she was. Claire was not asking me to pretend her age had disappeared. I could meet someone younger now, I said. I'm still choosing to sit here with you. That doesn't answer what happens later. No, it doesn't. I can't promise what either of us will feel 10 years from now. I can promise I won't quietly build an exit while telling you everything is fine. She accepted that because it was not a perfect answer. I had my own fear. Whenever Claire handled a difficult client, discussed property repairs, or made long-term business decisions, she seemed completely certain of herself. I worried she would eventually notice how many things I was still figuring out. One night, I asked whether she ever saw me as inexperienced. Yes, she said. I stared at her. Claire smiled slightly. You wanted honesty. I was hoping for comforting honesty. You have less experience in some areas. That doesn't make your decisions unimportant. She never treated me like a boy. She did not manage my money, organize my work, or tell me how to live. When I made a bad choice, she said so. When I disagreed, she listened without acting as if her extra years ended the conversation. We kept separate homes. Some evenings, she came to mine. Other evenings, I sat in her kitchen while she finished invoices. We went to a neighborhood cookout together and gave the older woman across the road enough information to support several months of observation. I also started working from the local coffee shop twice a week. At first, I told myself the change was practical. Better coffee, faster internet, fewer distractions. The truth was that I was trying to stop building my entire life around avoiding people. I contacted an old writing friend and sent him the page Claire had asked me to write. He replied with several useful comments and one sentence I disliked because it was accurate. Finish it before you judge it. So I did. Claire reorganized her spare room. She bought new brushes and paint without explaining the cost to anyone. She joined a small local art group and entered 2 pieces in a community exhibit. One sold. I was proud of her, but I did not tell people I had brought painting back into her life. I had not. She had opened the spare room door, bought the supplies, and put the brush against the canvas. During the winter holidays, Luke visited again. He still watched me, but with less suspicion. He saw unfinished paintings leaning against Claire's walls. He heard her disagree with him about dinner and refused to apologize for it. He watched her laugh loudly enough to turn her own head. When Claire stepped outside to get something from her truck, Luke stood beside me near the kitchen doorway. She seems like herself again, he said. She never stopped being herself. She just stopped feeling safe enough to show all of it. Luke looked toward the window. Then he nodded. That was all the approval I ever needed from him. Several months after Claire first knocked on my door, one of her paintings hung in my living room. It showed a yellow house with a wide porch, a crowded garden, 2 lit windows, and a gate left open. My completed short story lay printed on the kitchen table. No publisher had accepted it. Finishing it still felt important. That evening, someone knocked. Claire stood on the porch carrying another casserole dish. She wore jeans, casual shoes, and a smile that made the whole scene feel familiar. "I made this for us," she said. No story about having too much. No excuse this time. We ate on the porch with 2 plates between us. "Do you remember the first day I knocked?" she asked. "You brought enough food to feed a family and expected me to believe it was an accident." I almost turned around twice. "Why?" Claire looked at me. "I thought you might see me as too old, or enjoy the attention without respecting me. I thought I might become a temporary story you told later. I was worried you'd see me as too young to take seriously. Were you? Too young to know everything. Old enough to know I wanted to try honestly." She smiled. "Thank you for opening the door." Through the window, I could see her yellow house on my wall, my finished story on the table, and the second plate waiting beside mine. Claire had opened a door too. She had not repaired me or completed my life. She had simply given me a reason to start participating in it again.